I stole from my work as a teenager when I didn't get a raise. When I was 17 years old, I landed a job at a local chain of gift stores that specialized in greeting cards. We had 8 stores in the region, but I only ever worked at the one in my town. It was a nice change from what my classmates were doing. Instead of standing over deep fryers, I was arranging greeting cards and dusting crystal figurines. The store was always bustling with customers, especially during the holidays and special events. I took pride in my work and enjoyed the friendly atmosphere, despite the occasional challenges that came with the job. The scent of candles and the sight of neatly arranged collectibles made my shifts enjoyable. But little did I know, this seemingly perfect job would soon take a dark turn. My dedication and love for the job would be put to the test, and I would find myself caught in a web of deceit and desperation. I worked at the store for 2.5 years. I was never late, never called in sick, and picked up extra shifts whenever they asked me to. I worked late for special events and volunteered to work on holidays. My dedication didn't go unnoticed, and eventually I was put in charge of my own department, ordering and floor setting the Casa Crystal. Being given this responsibility made me feel valued and appreciated. I threw myself into my work, always ensuring that my department looked its best. The crystal displays sparkled under the store lights, and customers often complimented me on the beautiful arrangements. However, my enthusiasm was dampened by the presence of one-person supervisor, Beth. Despite my hard work and dedication, Beth made every day at the store a challenge. Her unreasonable demands and harsh treatment overshadowed my accomplishments. Beth was an older woman who seemed to take pleasure in making our lives miserable. She had a habit of making us massage her back and tie her shoes. She kept drinks at the cash wrap, even though it wasn't allowed, and she loved to leave us with one cashier usually during our busiest times. Her domineering behavior didn't end there. Beth would storm into the break room and critique our lunches, saying things like, "You can eat that in 10 minutes. You need to be on the floor. We're busy." This constant pressure made it difficult to enjoy even the briefest moments of respite. Everyone in the store complained about her, but nothing ever got done. Beth seemed to have an inexplicable hold over management, and despite our grievances, we were stuck dealing with her tyranny. It was demoralizing and frustrating, especially since I loved my job otherwise. Beth's control extended beyond the sales floor. She made it a point to monitor our breaks and lunches, often barging into the break room unannounced. "You can eat that in 10 minutes. You need to be on the floor. We're busy," she'd bark, her eyes narrowing in disapproval at our food choices. This constant intrusion made it impossible to relax during our breaks. We never knew when Beth would appear, ready to cut our lunches short and send us back to work. The tension was always high, and it started to wear on me and my coworkers. At the 2-year mark, when raises were being handed out, I was given a measly 10-cent per hour raise. The reason? Well, Beth said you aren't a team player. I was furious. Money was tight at home, and I worked to buy my own school lunches, clothes, car insurance, gas, and school supplies. My senior prom was coming up, and I needed a dress. The unfairness of the situation hit me hard. I had given so much of myself to this job, and yet I was being undervalued and underpaid. The frustration and anger I felt began to fester, and I started to see the store and my work there in a different light. Desperation can drive people to do things they wouldn't normally consider. Our store sold a lot of collectible severed bric-a-brac that people collected, thinking they'd be valuable someday. Figurines, little light-up houses, plates, you name it. One day, a customer bought a new figurine that had recently come out. It was from a collection of doe-eyed children figurines. To give you an idea, it was huge and very expensive for the line, around $300. She paid with cash. I went to the back to get one of the boxed ones and noticed there were a half dozen more of the same figurine. After I rang her out, I reprinted her receipt. This was before transaction capturing. Our reprints didn't say they were reprints. I then went to the back, took one of the figurines, and stashed it in the trash. Beth would never take the trash to the dumpster. I always had to do it, so I did and stashed the box behind the compactor and retrieved it after my shift. 2 days later, I went to another one of our stores in the next town over and returned it for cash. The thrill of that first heist was a mix of excitement and fear. I couldn't believe I had actually pulled it off. The money I received felt like a lifeline, a way to make ends meet and save for prom. I justified my actions by thinking about how unfairly I had been treated. Over the next 6 months, I repeated the process every few weeks. Only cash transactions, and only when we were busy so no one would notice me reprinting receipts. I was always going into the stock room, so it didn't raise any suspicions. I only did it with boxed collectibles that we kept in the back. Each successful attempt made me bolder. The money allowed me to buy the things I needed and save up for college. But with each figurine I took, the guilt started to creep in. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I felt like I had no other choice. Desperation can make you justify the unjustifiable. Despite the financial relief, the guilt started to weigh on me. I really did like my job. It was a nice change from the typical teenage jobs my friends had. I came home smelling like scented candles instead of lard. But every time I pocketed that cash, a part of me felt rotten. I began to dread the moments when I had to execute my plan, the thrill replaced by a sense of dread and shame. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I felt trapped by my circumstances. The financial pressures at home and the need to save for my future kept me going. At night, I would lie awake, replaying the events in my mind and questioning my choices. The fear of getting caught loomed over me, and the guilt was a constant companion. I felt torn between my need for the money and my sense of right and wrong. With the extra money, I was able to buy a beautiful dress for my senior prom. I felt like a princess that night, but underneath the glamour, the guilt gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living a lie. Prom was supposed to be a night of celebration, a culmination of my high school years. But as I twirled on the dance floor, I couldn't escape the nagging thoughts of how I had funded this experience. The dress, the shoes, the accessories still tainted by my actions. I smiled for the photos and laughed with my friends, but inside I felt hollow. The guilt overshadowed the joy of the evening, a constant reminder of the lengths I had gone to in order to fit in and enjoy this moment. It was a bittersweet experience, one that left a lasting impact on me. As the fall approached, I knew my time at the store was coming to an end. I was getting ready to leave for college. The thought of getting caught terrified me, but I needed the money. So I kept at it, careful and meticulous, ensuring I didn't slip up in my final weeks. My impending departure added a sense of urgency to my actions. I felt the pressure to make the most of my remaining time at the store, knowing that once I left, the financial security I had created would disappear. The stakes felt higher and the risks more daunting. Despite my fears, I managed to pull off a few more heists without getting caught. Each successful attempt brought a mix of relief and anxiety. I knew I was walking a fine line, but the thought of leaving for college with a little extra money kept me going. My last heist was just a few weeks before I quit. It went smoothly, just like the others. I returned a figurine to a store 2 towns over, pocketing another $300. As I walked out, I knew it was the last time. I was relieved and anxious all at once. The realization that this was the final time I would carry out my plan brought a sense of closure. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness, knowing that this chapter of my life was ending. The money in my pocket felt heavier than ever, a tangible reminder of my actions. As I drove home, I reflected on the journey I had taken over the past few months. The risks, the fear, the guilt, it all culminated in this final act. I promised myself that I would leave this part of my life behind and focus on building a better future. I left for college that fall, leaving my job and my thieving ways behind. I focused on my studies, trying to put the past behind me. But the guilt never fully went away. I kept thinking about how easily I could have been caught and how my life could have been ruined. College brought new challenges and opportunities. I immersed myself in my studies, eager to make a fresh start. But the memories of my actions at the gift store lingered, a constant reminder of the choices I had made and the risks I had taken. The guilt was a shadow that followed me, even in my new environment. I struggled to reconcile my actions with the person I wanted to become. The fear of being discovered haunted me, and I often wondered if I would ever be able to fully move on. Years later, I learned that the chain had folded due to interpersonal problems between the owners. I don't think they even noticed the missing merchandise. It was a small relief, but it didn't erase the guilt I felt for what I had done. The news of the store's closure brought mixed emotions. I felt a sense of closure, knowing that my actions hadn't been discovered. But the guilt remained, a constant reminder of the lengths I had gone to out of desperation. Looking back, I know what I did was wrong. It wasn't just immoral, it was incredibly risky. Had I been caught, my life could have taken a very different path. I'm grateful that I wasn't, but I still regret my actions deeply. They were born out of desperation and a feeling of being trapped. In hindsight, I realized the gravity of my actions and the potential consequences I faced. The fear of getting caught, the guilt, and the shame were constant companions during that time. I know now that there were better ways to handle my situation, but as a desperate teenager, I couldn't see them. My experience taught me valuable lessons about integrity, desperation, and the consequences of our actions. It's a chapter of my life that I regret, but it also shaped who I am today. I strive to make better choices and to never let desperation drive me to compromise my values again.